Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. I am your host, Kaiya McCullough, and I am so excited to be here with you guys again for another awesome episode this week. You already know what this show is about. Here we talk about the intersection of race, sports, culture, everything we can through a completely unfiltered lens and through the lens of my life. So I'm super excited to bring you guys another week of an awesome topic with an awesome guest. One of my coolest uncles is going to be on the show, my Uncle Jay. So I'm super excited for you guys to meet him and hear what he has to say because he's one of the smartest people that I know. And we're going to be talking about everything from saving the environment to gardening to guns and Black liberation and, just the moment that we're living in right now. So I'm super excited to have him on, and keep listening if you think that you'll like any of that. Hello there, Uncle.
How you doing?
Would you like to introduce yourself to my audience?
Yes, I am Kaiya's, or one of Kaiya's mini uncles. My name is Derek Winters Jr. That's where the J comes from. I'm probably going to speak some science stuff today, but I'm speaking on behalf of just myself, not the agency that I represent. But I do work for the Air Resources Board for our air quality here in California. So it's a nice, rewarding job. A little older than Kaiya, but I'm one of her younger uncles. But yeah, she's still one of my pride and joys because, you guys love her.
I made you an uncle. That's the most important point.
Yes.
When you were 11, so you could brag to all your friends?
Yeah. I was already, looking out for someone. It was interesting. But yeah, being uncle at 11, greatest thing ever though.
I gave you some street cred in your elementary school. You're welcome.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is the part of the show where I do an intro story to introduce you and our relationship to the audience. I didn't think of like a specific one, though there are plenty. But one of the things that I always remember as a kid is we would go to the fair every single year, the San Diego Del Mar Fair. And I remember never wanting to really go with anybody else besides you and Uncle Carl. And it was mostly because you were so good at that dart balloon game. And because you guys would always win me prizes whenever you would play. And you guys were the ones who would go on the roller coasters with me. So I don't know, that I think shows just my admiration for you and my trust in you as an uncle. I never wanted to go to the fair with anybody else. I looked forward to it every year. I think I demanded almost that you guys went with me. And a lot of it was because of that dart game. So
that was easy money, though. That was easy money.
Yeah, and we used to play darts all the time in your room. So yep. I started getting good at it once I got a little bit older. But if I ever just needed a prize because we weren't winning anything else, I was like, okay, we'll just go to the dart game and I'll get my stuffed animal for the day.
No, that was fun because, it gave me a chance to, have some fun and do those cool uncle things. So, yeah, it was nice.
Well, like I said, you're one of my coolest uncles. So definitely part of that is probably because of the fair. Just letting you know. It stuck with me.
Good to know.
All right. Well, obviously you're very science-brained, and the work that you do involves the environment. So my very, very first question is, how screwed are we in terms of climate change and in terms of how we're destroying our environment as humans?
That's an interesting question. And, there's a lot of different ways that we can go about that. I think it's first important to talk about, or at least raise the top 3 environmental issues that we face. That's soil degradation, increasing global temperatures in our water, ocean temperatures, and then overpopulation. So when you think about those things, that's kind of like, wow, that's a bedrock of us as a humanity. And to overcome that with increasing temperatures, it's quite dangerous. But no, it's a tough question, because you don't want to instill fear, because there's still like a lot of hope people would have. But no, to take a step back and to look at the evolution of us as men and women, but as man, we actually were we evolved in this like nice stable period that we're in, and we're kind of moving out of that. So it's kind of not sure to say exactly what we're going to face, just because we have some data of what the temperatures could have been like, but we don't know how our bodies are going to react to that. And the dangerous thing that we are going to be facing is increasing desertification. So the areas that are deserts now are going to be increasing, but then also around the equator, there's something like the wet bulb temperature, where it's the heat and the humidity, where it's going to get so hot and it's going to be so humid that as humans, how we cool down as we sweat. And if it's so humid, you're not going to be able to sweat, and that's going to be just disastrous for people. And you think about the areas around the equator, and it's like, well, how are these people going to cool themselves down? And you will, air conditioning, but when you
Yeah.
don't have that, it's like, well, that's going to be leading to another thing that we're facing is, the amounts of people that are increasingly needing air conditioning to stay at safe temperatures for human beings. So how screwed are we? It's safe to say that we don't know yet.
But I mean, we're going towards screwed, right? Just so
Yes,
we're clear. Okay.
definitely.
We're on the trajectory to be screwed. We just don't know the extent yet. Okay. And I guess, hearing that would send anybody into a panic. And quite frankly, I'm trying not to spiral about it. But how like culpable are we? Like how much of that is, corporations and I don't know, like big business versus how much is it like individual actions that is contributing to climate change and environmental disaster, I'll say.
No, so that's the funny thing, because to put it as to businesses or humans, just like us living, it goes to a larger topic, as to like just our lifestyles, and how much that changes from our or how much that's changed from our inception, from hunter gatherers to now, TVs in every room, and so I mean, chicken or the egg, right? Did we want all this stuff, or did someone tell us that we need it?
Ugh,
So
capitalism, whole other issue. Well, I
right.
saw a lot of like Earth Day posts yesterday on social media that were talking about like you can't talk about climate change without talking about colonization. Because indigenous people knew how to sustainably live off the land, and so that's definitely an interesting dynamic that you brought up because you know how much do we really need? I don't know. How much of this opulence do we really need? Do I really need this microphone to function? Probably not.
Well, it definitely something like that definitely allows you to get to a wider audience. But no, that colonization and the climate change. I mean, you have communities where they'll traditionally, let's go back to the Native Americans. That ox, or that bison. They're going to use every single piece of that animal. And so that like veganism wouldn't be necessarily like thought of, but it was still like no loss in food, and that's where the whole veganism comes from, is because we're mismanaging of food. So it goes, it's like there's so many different avenues that we can go to solve these things. But yeah, it's interesting to go into. I'll try not to go too much into the capitalism, but yeah, I think as far as like individuals, one of the important things that we can do is just try to understand that change, and like do we need like there's some type of comfort that we do need, like unfortunately suburbia, like your car, your job might be, out of a bus range, and there might not be a lot of people taking your same route, so it's not going to be a popular route, but you have every intention to take the bus. I fell into that, and then what do you have to do? You have to bite the bullet and gas up your car, because that's the only way. Or if you can somehow I don't know, have $100,000 lying around and go buy a good Tesla, and have all the charging infrastructure. But then that's getting back into having been able to be on the right side of that, and still not like going back to the whole indigenous simplest minimalist living. Good food, good company, and that's all we humans
That's all
need,
we
right?
need. Yeah, I mean, as you were just talking about like the commuting and stuff, I'm thinking about the differences of like when I was in Germany and just how different their public transport system is. Like there was in the town that I was living in, there was like a tram essentially that like took you all around the city all hours of the day, every 15 minutes, like wherever you need to go, multiple lines. The infrastructure for like biking was a lot different. The bike lanes were like very prevalent, very established. Like you don't need a car. I lived there for 4 months and I didn't need a car at all to get anywhere. So it's crazy just how much, America is really dropping the ball in terms of this environmental crisis that we're in. And it's disappointing for me because as an individual, like you kind of just feel helpless. Like you can do what you can to um buy a reusable bottle and use plastic straw, or not plastic straws, the metal straws or reusable straws. But I don't know, what else can people like me, everyday people, what can we do to help that isn't, or that will make a difference?
Eat less meat. No, seriously, that is probably one of the easiest things people can do. We're getting around the edges of changing your whole lifestyle. And it takes a lot. If you were going to ride that bus to your job 30 miles away, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you might not have the ability because you have kids or something like that. But one thing that you could do today for the environment is eat less meat. Not become a vegan, which if that's your goal, cool, to do that. But just eat less meat, and to get into that, you just have to go understand, like how the ag industry is set up and how much resources go into providing and getting that burger to your plate. I'll say burger because about what 1,000 more gallons of water go into getting that 1 pound of beef on your plate. And so that's to go not into too much depth, but I mean that's growing the grain to feed the animal, and how much they eat per day, and then their waste, dealing with the waste of that animal, dealing with the disease of that animal. And then, you have to, this is some years that you have to care for this animal. And that's just time and all that to go onto your plate where you could have, some type of similar calorie density and, nutritious, plant-based alternative. And,
Beyond meat. Very good.
Yes, and if you have not tried that or the impossible, I mean, one of your soccer games in UCLA, I mean, whenever I see it on the menu, I got to try it because that time there was my first time having it at a restaurant, and I still to this day do not know if they got my order wrong. I don't know if I had a burger or if I had the Impossible Burger that day. I don't know, and it's okay. Like.
I
But
feel like
yeah,
there's
so
a lot of
that's what we can all do today.
I feel like there's a lot
Go ahead.
of like
Sorry.
work to do around like getting the generation above you, so like my dad's generation, on that board or on that train, just because like whenever we go somewhere or I go somewhere with my dad, you know how he is like, ew, impossible
Mhm.
meat, ew, Beyond Burger. But like, I don't know, I like tofu, I like plant-based things. I would definitely eat them more, and especially I probably will try to after you saying that. That was kind of the kick in the ass that I needed. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like messaging that needs to happen with the generation above you, because they are very traditional, or at least that's the impression that I get from my dad and my mom. So,
No, and
anyways,
if I can speak on that for
oh,
a second,
yes.
no, just sorry, just for a second, no, because it's tough because and unfortunately, it's gonna have to come down to when someone absolutely has, and they're gonna kick themselves that they should have done this years ago, and that's a sad and unfortunate thing because I've seen it already, but yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, we are in this crisis and it's happening before our very eyes. And to your point, like, we're gonna be kicking ourselves because we didn't do more now. But how is this climate crisis, or how is this environmental crisis affecting especially like communities of color and like marginalized communities and lower class people a lot more than the rich?
There's a term that I learned in school studying environmental engineering called NIMBY, not in my backyard. And that's a nice way to put that. I don't want to put my trash over here. I'm going to put it over there because I think less of you, and therefore you deserve to look at that. And that's pretty much what it goes down to. I mean, it was like about maybe a year or so, maybe two now. Even Trevor Noah did something on environmental racism where there was like some type of like oil processing plant. And within code, 1,000 feet from a school, it can be built. But like, there was I think it was like 80% white school. That was like, H, no, that ain't coming over here. Like, so where did it end up? In a school that had opposite of those numbers. And but yeah, so it's actually tragic because it ties into that whole redlining thing. Where did redlining come from? Well, industry's been here for forever, and people have been sprawling out, and people are going to make a buck. And when you have the same type of mentality that are writing the environmental codes or the permit codes, the building codes, you're like, yeah, let's make a buck off these people, build a house right here. I'm not going to live here, but I can make money off of it. So, back to that, capitalism and that great thing that we're in.
Capitalism is the root of all evil. That is what I've been learning over the past few years. It truly affects everything. But yeah, it's like horrible. You hear stories about places like Flint and their water crisis, and it just makes you wonder like how often that is happening that isn't being overreported in the media, you know what I mean? Or that isn't getting the attention that Flint is. And it's concerning.
Well, and sadly, it's more prevalent than we're aware of, or at least the average person. Just me being following this stuff and working in the sector. Yeah. Please get a water filter.
Oh God.
Go ahead and reach out to Kaiya if you want to get my recommendation. But yeah, please get a water filter. Yeah, I'm serious because think about our roads, and we see those. So and we have our $100,000 cars driving on that, and no one sees what's inside your pipes, and those are built around the same time.
That is so gross.
So, yeah,
that is so scary. Not to scare anybody listening, but wow, I'm gonna need those recommendations. I'm gonna link those below because now I'm scared. Well, that and like when I got back from Germany, obviously I've been having some like not allergy issues because I don't have allergies. I got tested for it, so I'm having some sort of like reaction to the air. Like the doctor that I went to was like, yeah, I have no idea why your nose is inflamed. And I mean, I haven't gotten COVID that I know of. I've been tested pretty regularly all year. So like when we were kind of ruling things out, you're like, it's probably the air. And that scared the crap out of me because I was like, what?
No, and sadly, being in LA County, it's the air basin called South Coast. It's one of the, that and the San Joaquin Air Basin, Central Valley Air Basin. It's dangerous levels of particulate matter that's 2.5 microns inside and size, and that can actually just go straight through your skin and into your bloodstream. And that, if you think about it, because to put it in perspective, people can, think about things and diluting it inside water, right? Because you can see it like spread out. Well, we're in water right now. And when you have that stuff floating around, it's going to naturally just disperse everywhere. So, like everywhere around you is, it's the ambient air quality readings. And, so the pollution is going to be everywhere. And when you have that stuff just floating around to you, simple like diffusion and osmosis, it's going to
Oh,
just eat its way into things.
oh God. Maybe I shouldn't have done this episode with you because now I'm gonna freak myself out just walking around outside. Maybe I just need to wear my mask permanently.
I would say, there have been reports of microplastics being found atop of Mount Everest. So what does that mean? That means that plastic that has, aerolized, that it's been floating around in the air, just tiny little, like nano-sized pieces of plastic that are mixed into our water, and it got deposited in rain, in snow on Mount Everest. And yeah, so there is plastic in the air.
That can't be good for you. That
Oh.
just can't be good for your Oh no. And do people like even test for that? Like, is that like a regular like standard?
So there's, we have, I personally don't do monitoring, but I, understand, it's just a down the hall type of thing. So we do have monitors that pick up for like elemental stuff. Um, and well, we're not trying to scare people, so we're only like concerned about like elemental carbon, because that like is traced to like transportation and things like that. So we're not trying to sit there and break down everything that's in the but we will get like readings of like if we're near an industry, we will say, oh, like there's metal in the air, like metal processing facilities will have little bits of metal in the air. So yeah.
All
And
right.
yeah,
Well,
we
I'm
can
gonna
move on.
pivot
We can move on.
yeah. I'm gonna pivot before we spiral too far down because quite frankly, I'm getting scared about going outside.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of metal processing facilities in LA County. So sorry, moving on.
I mean, thankfully I'm not in LA anymore. Like I'm a little bit more in suburbia. So hopefully I'm a little bit better. But yeah, no, I will not be going back to LA anytime soon now after that. Um, but pivoting a little bit, I know you and I have talked about this topic in particular a lot, and I think it could be beneficial for other people to hear your thoughts on it. Um, we're going to talk about guns. Obviously, there's a lot of, debate going on right now in the news, especially with all the mass shootings happening, which is just really sad and really awful. And definitely think we need more gun control in this country. But that's a whole other topic. What do you think about like Black people and owning guns, and why do you think it's important?
I definitely think we should own guns. It's about self-defense. It's about equal rights. If one group of persons feel like they can have guns, why shouldn't everyone else feel like they should have guns? But take a step back. I always do that because like if let's say we were in feudal Japan, the most coveted position would be the samurai, if not like a emperor or something higher. And the weapon of the day is the katana. I mean, to not be precise and proficient in the weapon of the day I would almost say is foolish.
And my thoughts have definitely changed after this past year. In general, guns still kind of scare the crap out of me. and maybe that is why I should go with you to the gun range soon. But yeah, like what kind of led you to getting your first one, and how has that evolved? How has that thought process evolved for you?
Well, so I am something of a doomsday prepper.
Yes.
And not totally just weird, like everything is good, and I'm just worried about those potential hurdles that might or might not happen, and I just want to make sure I'm good for those too, and the
You're not
people I love, of course.
unhinged.
I want to make sure. Yeah. I'm not. Yeah. I'm not unhinged. I'm just got some extra toilet paper, you know like I wasn't freaking out. I had two extra things, just ready to go. But
You
no,
haven't
so that was
fully
my
gotten
first.
Sorry, you haven't
Go
gotten
ahead.
your doomsday like bunker yet. Not yet.
I mean, not yet, but like, I mean, no. To talk about that for a second, because Doomsday Bunker, like what you said, you insinuated, is living underground, and like humans, going back to that overpopulation, we're already needing to live on water because we need to find new places to live, just because it's so hot and it's unbearable too far inland because it gets too hot. So the other thing to combat that is actually going underground, and actually going underground is a lot, easier and more stable in temperature, because it's like what 15 feet, or like 15 feet down or something like that. It's like the same temperature throughout, so yeah, it's actually cooler. So actually, if I had let's say like $1 million someone just gave to me and I can go build a house, yeah, I'll at least have like 2 floors underground, and it'll just like, that would be just like absolutely like just cool down there, and then just have like one above ground. But yeah, so not fully unhinged, but yeah, I wanted to get a gun, for doomsday prepping, just because, whatever zombie apocalypse, I wanted, because that went with my samurai, my katana, and my bow and arrow, like, and I was like, I needed a firearm. So I believe the second part was, like how kind of did that change with the current environment. Well, I think I needed a little bit more than just one. And and just because when it comes down to it, not coming down to that, but they do different things, you know and so like for example, like a shotgun versus a handgun. Like the shotgun is for like short range personal defense, where a handgun would be multi-purposeful. So like so I started to like get a different style like that, just because more doomsday prepping. And when some person thinks that they need 20, and they're somehow mad at you when you didn't do anything, I think you at least need one. Just so you can, if it comes down to it, but hopefully it never comes down to that.
In like I'll call it like the Trump era slash like how we are now, like is there any fear within you of like owning that gun, and then some racist cop or something like mistaking it, and does that thought ever cross your mind as you're buying more and more and becoming more prepared?
Well, it it's funny because before I had any weapons on me, I had so many altercations with police, or cops on my college campus, going from class to class with my book bags. So and they're knee on my neck, five guys on me, dog piling me. Most embarrassing one was, I literally just left class with my team, my team we're going to do some homework with. And, we're about to go back and like go do a test. And here I am, just had some police dogpile on me, and sitting here saying like, hey, you don't know what he's capable of. Be careful. And one of I love this girl. She was like, "What are you talking about? Like, you don't know him. We know him." And it's like this little white girl, and it's like I just was so embarrassed, because like it's like I didn't want them to see me like that, but then to have to go still, go do a test and still function. So yeah, without a gun, I'm still a threat. So, I mean, having one, I've been pulled over with one, I carried it legally, transporting it legally, I got through it just how I get through every situation, with the prayer, because, complying is not, talking is not complying. I hope you guys know that. That's resisting arrest. So yeah, it's luckily I made it through, but yeah, so it doesn't add any fear because that fear is gone. Like if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's a really, I mean, I think that's a pretty good, description of the Black experience in America. And I think a lot of people like don't realize that. And I think that's kind of where my perspective has changed, is like, they're gonna mess with you regardless. Like you might as well have a gun, just in case. I mean, that young girl that just got killed by police, Kaiya, which, that still really raw, but like, she was trying to defend herself from people, and yet she was still mistaken as a threat. So I just get scared. I think that's like a lot of my hesitancy with having a gun, is like being mistaken as a threat when, the threat is already there. But I don't know. I think after we're both
Don't call
vaccinated.
911.
Yeah, no, trust me, I won't. You guys taught me better than that. No, I think after we're both vaccinated, I'm definitely gonna have to join you at the gun range, and I will learn. I will learn. I will give you that. I will learn just so I can be prepared. I don't know if I'll ever buy my own, at least not now, but I still do have my machete that you bought for me. So
yeah, and I'm still glad that I was able to do that for you. But yeah, and largely mine are just paperweights, and once you realize that, I was like, man, like I want to get something that actually looks nice because I'm actually never going to use it. And yeah, go ahead.
I remember when we went to that one store when you were buying one time, and I really like the pink one. So I think that would be the one that I would get, is a pink one, because I don't know if I would ever use it actually.
Right? It'll just look nice.
Yeah. I get it. I do get it. But yeah, like, so can you say it is definitely your recommendation that all Black people get a gun?
Oh, yes. And learn how to use it. When you get it, become a member of that gun range. Go once a week when you start, and tailor off. Someone, if you're looking for training, there's training out there. But yeah, get it, do some training. It's it's better to just not need it and know that you can, but that's it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Kind of on the same vein, but going a little bit more broadly of a perspective, like, I think, kind of what you were describing is almost preparing ourselves as Black people. And in a sense, taking ownership of like a gun is taking ownership of our safety and our protection. In a lot of ways, that reads to me as one form of like Black liberation. So I guess I just wanted your thoughts on that concept as a whole, just more generally. Like, what does that look like for you? And what does that mean?
That's that's the dreamland right there.
That's a big question, I know.
No, I mean that's literally that's that pie in the sky. I mean, Black businesses, or more Black businesses, more Black schools. I'm talking about like K through 12 and preschool, like more Black businesses, more Black banks. If you don't have an account at a Black bank, please go get one today. And then ultimately, the true crown of Black liberation is global Black freedom, and it's going to have to be being lifted up from the system that put us down, capitalism that started with abducting us and split up our home continent, and being able for every Black person that was displaced from their home continent to be able to go back and claim that whole continent, and have the actual real USA form, the United States of Africa. That's Black liberation, where we can have Black consulates everywhere. I mean, imagine if we can go someplace and be like, yeah, you're not going to treat Black people like this. Like that's Black freedom, that's Black liberation. United States of Africa. I mean, there's been talks about having a passport that does the same, but until we can lock down that whole continent and be able to claim that whole continent as a country, I mean, it'll have the #1 GDP. I mean, minus military, I mean, we'd be up there. And that to be able to have that back and be able to just be like, no, I'm about to bounce. That's liberation. That's and sorry, let me finish that, because there's because currently on the books right now, you still have African nations indebted to their colonial masters, sitting there where they have so much of their GDP going directly back to their coffers. You have everyone undervaluing the minerals that are underneath their feet. I mean, to think about the Middle East, they got one mineral, pretty much oil. And we got tons of it in Africa. We should have more billionaires per capita just because of that. But because everyone undervalues the African, everyone pillages us and everyone undersells the raw minerals at a low value. And therefore, the wealth doesn't get back to the African. And then, there's some, I'm sorry, I could talk about days. I could talk about days.
Keep going.
I mean, they're just, because Africa does have oil, and then you'll have some companies come in and say like, yeah, let me, create this infrastructure. Let me lift up this region. And there was, okay, we'll hire, 20% of the locals, and, and it's like, it's just more of the same. It's just more of the same pillaging of the continent and leaving the natives, the Africans, being outplaced by foreign invaders. And I literally have to say that, because if you don't know, Mandarin is being taught in African countries. Like, part of the curriculum in school is Mandarin, and like, that's crazy. So, but but there's it's called soft colonization that's going on, where you'll have some place like China or something, because it is cheaper to set up an infrastructure, set up a business, set up, a little network in a place that needs it, like Africa, and then just hire your own. And then, then just expand and keep on expanding. So, but yeah, I can talk days about that.
It's just like this chronological, or not even this cyclical instance of just exploitation of Black people and Black labor and Black resources and Black ideas. And yeah, I could definitely talk about this a lot too. I recently learned that when you were talking about, colonization and stuff, I recently learned that like Haiti or something is still indebted to like, I don't even know. It was this long story, and we can fact check me later, but Haiti is like still indebted, and it was done through Wells Fargo. And the reason that they still are like paying back and why their economy is so disrupted is because they had to essentially pay compensation to their slave masters for freeing themselves, which is just like the fact that we're still seeing like the repercussions of that today is horrible. And I don't understand how easily we see like politicians explain away these things. And I think it's funny because I've quite literally seen people on social media be like, yeah, we didn't need Black people to make this country. Like, we would be just the same without Black labor and Black people's contributions. And like, that's kind of the argument that is used to explain away like reparations. But yeah, no, it's it definitely is something that you could talk about forever, just because there's so much nuance to it.
it's something I can speak on because like within environmental engineering, I did study aerospace engineering and Africana studies in college, and just to talk about a little bit, it comes down to education, as to like why politicians are able to explain it away. I mean, reparations were paid, like so people could be like, well, what are you talking about? Reparations were paid, yeah, just to the white slave owners. They got paid the compensation when the slaves got freed. You know, I mean, but just talk about your lineage that you're a part of. Like you have a granny that was the first Black integrated into a school system. Like that's living history. So to be nothing other than a student of history was, I felt like, my responsibility. And so yeah, and to hear things to say, people in history have said, if you want to hide something from an N-word, put it in the book. So I'm going through every book. You ain't gonna hide it from me.
Yeah, no, you definitely have always been an intellectual in our family. As I would put it, you and my dad, I think definitely. You guys don't like to think that you're very similar, but you are.
We are. I like him.
I know there's an age gap there, but you guys are very similar. But yeah, just more on that thread, like, all right, so we have the ideal, we have the promised land. Like, how do we get there? How do we as a people get there? And what does that mean for us? I know this is like big questions. I know you don't have all the answers, but I've always thought that you have all the answers. So
No. I literally think the way that we get there is, young, inspirational, politically driven people like yourself, Kaiya.
I'm doing my best.
I'm gonna study the books, but yeah, you need to lead the charge and get more like-minded people together and understand that as Black people currently right now in America, we have $1.3 trillion in purchasing power annually. If we can just channel that energy into not organizations like Black Lives Matter, but Black organizations, local organizations that are going to help you at a local level. I think that is going to actually lead us to getting us to where we need to be as like politically organized, and then when we actually because we're always going to be like we're not going to be a dominant number in this society, but we do control the narrative of what is considered like cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's one of those things that I needed to study growing up. But no, I mean, honestly, like you have this emulation of people trying to get Black features, but not necessarily want the Black experience, but the Black features, the Black entertainment. Like you want that culture. So if we can steer that culture into the positive messages, like I don't know, Bob Marley, what he's talking about, political, freedom and Africa unite. If you can have entertainment grab the minds. I mean, how like let's say like Black Panther, for example, like that right there, that just gave people a vision of Black excellence, and it gave someone hope. So yeah, young Black people like you getting the hearts of people are going to lead us to get back to where we want, because we're going to need to follow the young people because the average age in Africa is below 40. So it's a young people's movement. If you don't know that, it's a young people's movement.
No pressure. No, I'm just kidding. You spoke a little bit about like Black Lives Matter and how, I know there's a lot of discourse going on with them as an organization right now. And, as you were talking, I was even thinking about like celebrities who I think are really bad for Black people. Not all skin folk or kinfolk, like Kanye West types. Like, can you speak on that a little bit? Like why brands and people and organizations like that might not be the path towards Black liberation?
I think they well, let's I there's two ways I can go about that. It's playing their game or not playing the game. And to play their game is to still have a capitalistic society. And yeah, you can they're going to sing and dance to whatever tune they want because we decide what's cool. But no, that would playing their game is in my opinion not the way to go. My opinion would be to break the chain, break the wheel, going back to Game of Thrones, is to dismantle that system. I'm not exactly sure. I am exactly sure, but I have some like it does not, we don't need, like, capitalism insinuates that you're less than me, therefore like I deserve, or you deserve less than me when you equally help me to create a finished product, you deserve less than me. Like that in itself is capitalism. Like, you have a part in the product to get a finished product, but yet you're not going to reap in the equal rewards of that finished product. Like, that's capitalism. Like, it has to depend on someone seemingly being less than the other person. And to me, that can't be the answer. I'm sorry. Like, that can't be the
Yeah.
answer.
Whatever way you look for, like whatever angle you look at it from, that can't be the way forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I agree. That can be a whole separate podcast episode, is specifically capitalism and how
Right.
it is the root of all evil. We can do like a whole diagram if we want. I think we can get that in the works.
Yeah, I would need that diagram to keep me focused.
Because it's just also interconnected in so many ways. And, this is only an hour of talking, but it's all very surface level. And to me, it kind of points to like how much there is to learn. And, that desire to learn as much as I can is kind of what keeps me going and what fuels me and a lot of my energy in this fight. But as much as we're talking about Black liberation, like, not all the people who listen to this podcast are Black. And so I guess, on that vein, like, what does allyship look like in this movement towards Black liberation?
Definitely putting, like, everyone can, like, now it's easier. You can just, send some money away. But I'd want boots on the ground, and actually having that awkward conversation with, that cousin, that friend, because the conversations that, even I've been a part of where, like, well, why can't they be more like you, Derek? Mr. Straight A's, top athlete, this, that, and the other, why can't they be more like you? And I'm like, what? I mean, I speak for the human race. I need more humans like me, not just Black people. But no, yeah, I see allyship as, as more having that awkward conversation. I mean, yes, and I, even though I'm like a recluse type, I especially in the COVID area, COVID time, but like, going out of your way to make a Black person feel more comfortable in a non-Black space. I work in a predominantly, now it's a little bit more mixed, but it's definitely non-Black. And, just of, and I've been in a meeting where someone said something, and I'm just like, what did you, and I must be, I must be crazy because, I thought we were all sane here. It's pretty much I work with all left-wing progressives,
Yeah.
But they needed to not to see that in through
Yeah.
my eyes. So yeah, having that awkward conversation, that's what I need folks to do.
I know, especially like you see that a lot, like where I grew up, especially in Orange County, just people being so comfortable with like the status quo and not really wanting to make waves. for the sake of like fitting in or for the sake of conforming and being popular, whatever the reason is, like people are so comfortable defending whiteness and defending the status quo. And I think that's, like you said, like allyship needs to come in that regard, because the structures are created by white people. They're not going to be torn down by Black people. They're going to be torn down by white people.
Correct.
So, that's where allyship comes in. Like, y'all got to tear that down.
Yes.
In the most broad sense ever. And yeah, that, does start at the individual level and having awkward conversations and, making sure you're informed enough to go into those conversations and actually be productive about it. But yeah, I completely agree. Like, people just need to get out of their own whiteness. I was talking to one of my friends today about how, like, a lot of, especially like white men in Orange County will be like, oh yeah, like I'm liberal, whatever. And then we'll just say the most out of pocket, like racist, misogynistic stuff ever. And I'm like, we must not be the same kind of liberal. And I don't really label myself as that anymore anyways, but like, I'm always just like, we must be a different kind, because that is not my idea of it. So when you brought up, your coworkers being left leaning and still problematic, I think that just goes to show like there's a long way to go in terms of allyship, which is really disheartening a lot of times.
Yeah, it goes back to that education.
The curriculums, there's so much to fix, so little time. That's the part that I feel myself like getting exhausted with in this space, is like, as soon as you think that you're seeing progress in one area, you're like, oh, well, this whole other area needs to be completely reformed and fixed and changed and overthrown. It's just so interconnected. And yeah, I don't know. I guess one of my closing questions for you then, just like going off of that, is like, how do you keep your peace and your motivation and your energy in this fight towards liberation?
Well, it's funny because, just a little bit, like my work is tied to that liberation of people's getting, from under this economic and environmental issue. And then, my social time is spent, learning and, gouging and taking in, gorging, my bad, all this media, all this Black media, to make sure I'm like up to speed. And, because people, hold me in high regard, which I absolutely take to the most respect, that like, so I do have to stay on top of everything. It actually does weigh on you day to day to keep the facts, to see the the injustice daily. I garden.
I know, I love the pictures.
Yeah, I mean, just that simple serenity of having the garden, and also just ensuring that I know like the mountains that our ancestors face, and they still were able to put on a smile, and and somewhat have life, and then we just comparatively face hurdles today. Like it's like you want to rejoice, but yet we still got a lot of personal stuff that we got to do. So yeah, I take my breaks when I can, but I mean, for the most part, I'm on a grind, out of respect for my ancestors. Because there's a mantra that I keep in this light, or I hold on to, that it does, like when the times do get tough, it's a slave saying that I picked up in my studies: patience in this life, triumph in the next. And I mean, that's what we have. We have to be patient in this life, and in that afterlife, because even the African ancestry, we believed in the afterlife. The goddess Maya, would weigh your heart, it had to be lighter than a feather to go to heaven, like that. Like, so yeah, saying that, gardening, and understand we were on a grind. Keeping that fire and paving the way, making sure that I was a good role model for, this young, beautiful, inspiring, person, Kaiya here, making sure that I, was someone that you could look up to and, so on and so forth. Like that'll keep you up, and that'll make sure that, despite having, literally like my life sabotaged, like keep on grinding. So yeah.
Well, thanks. I have always looked up to you. You know that. I was going to say, when you were talking about gardening, immediately my mind went to in Endgame when Thanos is like doing his gardening after the snap, and he's just like completely serene after that really drastic cataclysmic event. That's how I envision you gardening, because I haven't seen your garden yet because of COVID. But that's kind of the image of you that I've been keeping in my mind.
Yeah, and that's the path that I'm on too.
The snap.
No, just trying to change the world, as much as I can.
And I think, that is my path too. I have done a lot of reflection this year, a lot of spiritual guidance and whatever you may call it. And I see the path now clear as day, and it's a little scary because it's, like you said, there are hurdles in front of us, but also, like you said, our ancestors face mountains. So this seems like a small drop in what was a very big ocean for them, in my opinion. And hey, that's why I wear this shirt. I am Black History. So that's what I carry with me too every day. It's just I wish we knew more about our history, and maybe one day we can sit down and try and figure it out. But how it was taken away from Black people in this country.
Yeah, you're from excellence. Just know that.
I can feel it. I feel it in everything I do, and it carries me forward. And a lot of people, I literally get this question all the time. It's like, how are you still standing? Like, how are you still doing stuff? And I'm just like, I don't know. I am powered by my family and my ancestors. Like I truly am. I truly feel it. And that has been a big thing for me this year, is just that connection. And I may or may not become like, I may or may not start exploring like Black witchcraft, you know what I mean? Like what the things that our ancestors used to do. So I don't know. We'll see how that path will look for me moving forward.
It'll just be an interesting book to read, right?
Yeah. I mean, like the spiritual practices that were taken away. Like there's so much I feel like I don't know. There's so much to read in so little time.
No, yeah, but you're enjoying your path, and that's the most important thing. Is it's a discovery, and every chapter you're going to just learn more and more and richer, deeper in history of just how awesome you truly are. And it's not like you're better than other people, but you're enriching your own history, and it's reversing the foot that this whole world has put you under, that boot. So no, you need to know that you're not lazy. You need to know that Africans were chosen as slaves for a reason. It's not because they're lazy. That makes no sense. And to think so would be loony, but who am I, right?
Well, this is an awesome discussion. I'm going to go to the last part of the show where you get to tell a story about us. I am interested to hear what you say. Obviously, you've known me since I was born, so I feel like you have a wide variety of things to choose from.
Well, it's funny, that you brought up the fair and having so much fun at the fair, because, one of the, well, first off, there's a picture that I've actually been searching for years. I don't know where it's at, but you're like up to like a little bit above my kneecap, and I had just finished like a basketball game or something, And yeah, it's just like I'm just like, like this is Kaiya, like like I'm stuck with her. Yeah.
Hey.
But no, it's been cool. But no, the something that that I actually hang on to was one of the first times that I was actually able to like take you someplace by myself, because like you're not my child and my brother is scary.
He is.
So yeah, when I was able to take you to the fair by myself, first off, I don't have money, like so, like I had money, I could take my niece and show her a good time at the fair. I mean, I was finally feeling like the uncle, because I wanted to be that like like white people have a rich uncle. I want to be that rich uncle, like, and all I have is knowledge to drop, and it felt good to finally, buy you what you wanted, So that was my memory I wanted to share is my first time being able to take you to the fair.
That is funny that we both picked the fair though, because that was a very ingrained part in me. No, but yeah, I love you. I love our family. I have always worshipped you guys. I love you guys. I know I'm very well protected, especially after this episode. But yeah, no, thanks for being on this. I really appreciate it. I've always valued your opinion to the moon, and I think it's really valuable to have other people hear it too. So thank you for being on.
No, thank you, and I love you, Kaiya. Thank you. I feel honored for you having me on. So thank you.
We'll have to do it again, but we can talk about something else. Maybe not environmental doomsday.
Right, just a little bit happier topic, maybe.
Yeah, we'll focus on Black Joy. 100%. Well, that's it for our show this week. Thank you for listening. If you're still here, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. That's how we get noticed and a bunch of other stuff. Make sure you follow the podcast on socials, on Twitter and Instagram. It's Unfiltered WKM. Check out merch at 2centssports.shop and help support the show and the network, and tweet us any comments you may have. I love hearing from you guys. Really makes this worth it. So thanks for listening again. See you next week.